And what is this ERD? So ERD is a graphical representation used to model the data structure of a database. Please take note of these keywords. It's a graphical representation which we usually use to model and like the data structure of a database. So it illustrates the entities within the system and the relationship between these entities. Now, when building databases, we know that database is a combination of what is called a schema, combination of different tables and users in the database and the different sessions that each of these users have. Now, how do we build relationships between these entities? Now, the ERD gives us that graphical representation of the model of a database. Now, it is commonly used in database design to provide a clear and organized way of showing the data and its association. Now, quickly, we'll be looking at a typical example or an illustration or a graphical representation of an e-commerce model or a database. So looking at it in front of us here, we have this ERD for an e-commerce store. And if you carefully observe, we have these tables, and each of these tables have these connections which are called relationships. And we have here one-to-one relationships. Now, in the next lesson or in subsequent classes, we will talk more on relationships, one-to-one relationships, one-to-many, many-to-many relationships. Now, if you look closely to this, these are different tables in a database. We can call this database, let's say, an e-commerce database, and where we have the different tables such as a customer, order, product, categories, and the delivery. Now, looking closely at this, we can see what is called a PK, and this PK is the primary key, and then we have what is called the foreign key. We also have the order table, and you notice here that each of these tables have its own primary key. But if you look at the order table, we can find a customer ID column here, which is also present in the customer table. And now we can see this relationship where customer ID in the order table is actually a foreign key from the customer table. Now we can actually see that we have what is called product ID here. We have product ID here. We have category ID here, and we also have category ID here. So using this ERD diagram, we can create relationships between the table. So it therefore means that as a database user, or let's say as a data analyst, if you are presented with this diagram, how do you interpret this diagram? Now, carefully looking at this, we can see that this is a customer table containing 4 different columns, 3 columns, 3 columns, and then 3 columns. So it is possible for us to get data by, let's say, using the joint. For example, we can join 2 different columns using these different unique keys. We have customer ID, we have customer ID here. So let's say we are trying to find the name of a customer and then the particular date in which the customer placed an order, or let's just say an order ID. We want to trace the order ID which is generated or which was generated by a particular customer with an email. Now, if we are to use only the customer table, we cannot find the order ID using this. So we therefore have to use these 2 tables. That is why we created a relationship between the customer table and then this order table, where we can use the customer IDs here. We can use the inner join, all right? We can use any kind of join to join this table and then find out the names and then the different order IDs for the customers with their emails and then the address. Now we can also check here, we have what is called the product ID, all right? And we have category ID. We can also see that we have category ID here. So that means that we can combine this column where we have category ID, and we also combine together here and build relationships between these to find out or to fetch. As a data analyst, your role is to write queries that will fetch information from a database. Now, if you do not understand how this ERD works, it's going to be difficult for you to write queries. So I do tell people that first and foremost, one of the things you have to understand for you to properly be a proficient data analyst or a confident data analyst is to understand how tables are created, what primary keys are, so you could know the information to fetch from one. Maybe it is not present in the other one. You can then write queries to join each of them and to know the right keywords, the right statement to write, so you could pull out this information from the databases. So this is basically what the ERD, how the ERD works. So this is a graphical representation of a database containing the different constraints, okay, foreign key, primary key, and then the different tables and the different columns and how, relationships are built in each of them. Now we have some tools that we can use to build these ERD diagrams. And one of them is, we call it the online, I'll categorize into the online tools and also the desktop tool. So we have the Lucid Chart, we have the Draw.io, Creately, and then we have these other tools. You can download this to your laptop. MySQL Workbench is an app. So you can really actually use that to build your ERD diagrams. We have the Microsoft Visual. Personally, I've used the Microsoft Workbench before. Then we have another one called the pgadmin. pgadmin, when you are working with PostgreSQL, you will be downloading pgadmin. So using pgadmin, we have ways to do that. And basically, I'll be using pgadmin to, since we've been working with the PostgreSQL, I'll be using the pgadmin to draw some ERD diagrams so we could use that to model our typical database in this lecture. So I am really glad that you're able to, join us in this class. This is where we're going to be stopping in this part of the class. And next time we will get into the one of the applications here to start working with databases, building the diagrams and, generating models, creating relationships, building tables, and a whole lot of things. So see you then.